The galaxy of Warhammer 40k is one of constant warfare. Factions battle it out for supremacy, dogma, or simply just for the hell of it. But a new threat has emerged from the depths of intergalactic space that has almost everyone worried. The Tyranids are a Xenos species not from the Milky Way. They've drifted through the blackness of dark space in search of prey. In our galaxy, they find plenty of it. Tyranids are insectoid in appearance and can take on many forms, but all are bioengineered killing machines created to be the apex predator on any battlefield. As far as anyone can tell, the Tyranids only have one goal: consume. But what happens when the Tyranids set their sights on a planet? How does the process of harvesting begin? And what is the fate of the world and its inhabitants? Brace yourself for a worst case scenario as we delve into the chilling details of a Tyranid invasion. Welcome back to Starhammer. Tyranid invasions are not haphazard, but rather a meticulously structured process. The Hive Fleets, refined to perfection, utilize every resource to further their own evolution. Each stage of the invasion brings new horrors to the doomed world, and within a matter of days, the Tyranids will have transformed the planet into a lifeless husk adrift in the cosmos. The first stage of a Tyranid invasion is reconnaissance. Here, the Hive Fleet begins its analysis of a world, subtly infecting native life forms. The majority of Tyranid units active at this time excel at concealment and operate independently. Lictors, Gene Stealers, a few others use their abilities to gather intelligence for their fleet. Tyranid presence is pretty minimal at this point, with only a few units on a world that will prioritize their own self-preservation more than other Tyranid bioforms. Most Tyranids aren't able to function separate from the hive mind, but these recon units are granted such independence that they can efficiently propagate and ensure an effective and swift invasion. Vanguard drone ships are responsible for getting these creatures where they need to go. Small and fast, these ships will descend upon a target world to drop off these scat forces before leaving just as quickly as they appeared. Most Vanguard ships are never detected due to their low propulsion / psychic signatures and their small size. When one is detected, it is automatically made the highest priority target of forces in that system, as destroying one can significantly delay a Tyranid invasion. But what do one of these ships deposit? Well, let's talk about those creatures I mentioned earlier. Lictors are masters of stealth. Using their feeder tendrils, they will immediately begin analyzing the atmosphere and mineral composition of the planet, and eventually move on to analyzing organic life as well, consuming sapiens and wildlife to absorb their memories and understand more about the creatures and the life of the world. All this data is relayed back to the hive mind once a fleet comes within synaptic range of the planet. This allows the fleet to prepare accordingly. If a lictor is slain before this can be done, the invasion can be stalled, as now the Hive Fleet doesn't know how to optimize its bioforms for the target planet. Gene Stealers are the next and more dangerous recon unit. Gene Stealers are crucial in the invasion process, as they're the ones that begin to infect local plant and wildlife with Tyranid genetic material. Eventually, this creates hybrid creatures that will come under the direct purview of a broodlord or other commanding monster. The really freaky thing about Gene Stealers is they don't need to be dropped off by a drone ship to begin their machinations. These things are so pervasive that they've been found in cargo holds on random warp-capable vessels and in abandoned space hulks even, waiting for just the right moment to begin their operations. Once a significant portion of the native life forms have been assimilated, these recon units will emit a psychic call that summons their hive fleet, and the invasion can now truly begin. As a hive fleet enters the system, the shadow of the warp heralds its arrival. This ominous ability of the hive mind disrupts the warp within several light years of the hive fleet's vessels and is particularly potent to psychers. Nobody knows if this is a manufactured phenomenon or just a natural byproduct of the sort of psychic influence that Tyranids have on the warp, but regardless, this psychic white noise prevents any and all warp abilities from being utilized within its radius. Even void ships aren't immune from its effects, as they're often unable to enter or exit the warp as the hive fleet approaches. Now, if a psyker attempts to reach out into the Immaterium, they're suddenly assaulted by the fractured voices of billions of alien thoughts. Only the strongest of psykers have been able to withstand this vicious assault, while the rest are instantly plunged into insanity. Just imagine a whole world or system going totally silent. Nobody has any way of knowing what's coming for them, nobody can flee, and nobody knows what to do next. As the Hive Fleet comes within range of the target, the fleet begins to rain down mycetic spores onto the planet. Now, these spores begin changing the composition of the oceans, plants, and everything else on a molecular level into forms that the Tyranids can more readily consume and benefit from. Other spores come down, bearing creatures like gargoyles and gaunts, or even bigger organisms like a mylock or a trigon. Those larger ones will produce more spores as they burrow, which will eventually result and capillary towers. We'll get to those in a bit. At this point, the recon units we mentioned earlier will reveal themselves. The Gene Stealers and their hybrid minions begin targeting those coordinating defenses and critical infrastructure. As it stands right now, not all hope is lost. The inhabitants of the planet can still mount a significant defense, blasting spores out of the sky, protecting communications and command centers, even targeting the hive ship itself are all valid methods of protecting the planet. Sometimes, a defense effort might be so well coordinated, and the Tyranid Expeditionary Force takes such substantial losses that the hive mind might deem a world a detriment to try and harvest. On such rare occasions, the Tyranids will retreat and find a new world to consume. But all too often, the Gene Stealers and recon units have done too well of a job sowing chaos and discord among the defenders' ranks. Defenses are fractured and ineffective, and the next stage of the invasion begins. The might of the Tyranids is then laid to bear. Gaunts, gargoyles, carnifexes, biotitans all rampage across the planet in great hordes that create battlefronts that are miles across. Behind the Tyranid line, capillary towers erupt from the surface. The tendrils absorb the minerals and biology of the world beneath and around them. From the atmosphere to the oceans, these towers use the biomass accumulated by the horde to spawn new bioforms to aid in the assault. Gaunt hordes in the hundreds scurry across the ramparts, and gargoyle flocks are so thick and numerous that they block out the sun, while Hierophants and Dominatrix rampage through the defenders. Trigons bury under fortified positions, only to burst from the ground behind the defenders as other bioforms flood out of its newly dug tunnel. Once a position is conquered, the Tyranids move on, leaving behind mountains of dead, their own and the enemy's. These corpses are left behind so that the second wave, along with capillary towers, can absorb/reabsorb the biomass to continue the effort. In orbit, the massive hive ship organisms send down millions of small ripper swarms that get to work on devouring every piece of organic matter that they can find. When they've had their fill, they hurl themselves into digestive pools created by the capillary towers so that their gluttony can fuel the swarm further. At this point, the planet is considered lost. The only effective form of action to be taken would be exterminatus, but there is a bit of a silver lining. It's quite possible that the hive ship has expended a majority of its resources by this point, leaving them vulnerable to attack, and destroying those organisms in orbit might delay the wider fleet further resources. As Tyranids conduct cleanup operations against the last vestiges of futile defense, the hive ships in orbit begin to descend into the upper atmosphere to meet the tendrils of the enormous capillary towers and start the process of biomatter transference. As the towers pump the biomass up into the ships, the remaining Tyranid forces on the planet will throw themselves into the digestive pools of the towers so that they can be repurposed and recycled into new Tyranid organisms. Every memory, genetic pattern, and everything that would have remained is totally consumed. Once that's done, the capillary towers begin consuming the water on the planet, and at last, the atmosphere, and then the towers themselves. All that remains is a lifeless, barren rock drifting through space with nothing remaining of its previous life. And so the Tyranids move on throughout the galaxy. Their ceaseless hunger annihilates and consumes world after world. Unless the galaxy's sentient races can figure out a way to stop their advance, the Tyranids will be the galaxy's end as we know it. That's all for this one, folks. Tyranids are one of the scarier factions in the 40k universe, and they also have some of the coolest models on tabletop. So I figured I'd put them in the spotlight for a bit. Remember to drop a like if you like it, subscribe if you really like it, and check my community tab to keep up with my latest videos and shenanigans. I'll see y'all in the next one. Toodles.